chocolate rain. Some stay dry and others feel the pain. Chocolate rain.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to my next episode of Hot Chocolate with Rain. I am joined by Elise Randolph and hopefully moderator. I don't think he's shown up yet because I think he was busy, but he will be here soon, I hope.
I've totally been on once, I think.
What?
I'm pretty sure I've been on once.
Yeah. I think you have. Yeah, you have. At least twice. I'm pretty sure. You've been on at least twice.
Yeah.
Okay. But I am joined by Elise Randolph, and we are here to, talk about the Alliance Tournament because that is next week, and I don't think a lot of people understand, how exciting this is. So, yeah. You guys already heard Elise talk, and hopefully I don't have to introduce him. I hope you guys all know who he is. #1 Taylor Swift fan is pretty much all you really need to know. I think I'm so funny. But yeah, Elise, are you excited for the AT on a scale of 1 to 10? How excited?
I think a lucky number 13 would be how excited I am, though I probably should have done 14 because it's the 14th one. But either way, I'm mega ultra excited. I can't wait for it.
Nice.
It's always my favorite time of the year, right? Even when I'm not playing in it, and even when I'm not a commentator in it, it's still always my favorite thing to watch.
Do you at least kind of tune into the meta? Because I know you fly with PL, and PL is obviously a huge contributor and persona, I guess, in the Lions tournament, a huge team. Do you at least sneak in and see what they're doing when they practice, or listen to their meta or their talks or whatnot, or do you just kind of wait in excitement for it all?
For the last few years, I've been pretty heavily involved in I guess managing the team and managing the practices. This year I didn't have enough time to do it properly, and I don't know, I kind of don't like to half-ass things, so I've been kind of sitting really far away from the entire thing. And I've just been kind of watching from a distance, seeing the setups that they come up with and what kind of works against what other doctrines and stuff and other archetypes. So yeah, I've been kind of snooping and spying, and I've also been spying on or I guess the best way to put it is just watching casually other teams.
Okay.
As they practice, and as teams scrim as well. PL's been scrimming with other teams this year as well, so I've been kind of watching that and see how they do.
So, does PL do this all on the test server, the Thunderdome server that Logibro was talking about in the 07 show?
Yeah, exactly. After with the addition of the Thunderdome server, it's really increased the amount of productivity that teams can have, and I mean, because before it used to be, if someone was spying on you, you had to move up and move and stuff like that, and it's really frustrating. For Alliance Tournament 11, we had our own dedicated testing systems on Singularity, but we weren't able to, or CZB wasn't able to do that for 12 and 13 for whatever reason. So now that we have our own testing server, it kind of brings that back to the secure environment we had before, which is really good. And if anyone watched Alliance Tournament 11, I think that was probably one of the best Alliance tournaments from start to finish. There was so much parity between the teams. There were so many good teams, and all that came down to was just simply the ability to practice.
Okay, that makes sense. And we have now been joined by moderator in the room. Say hello, moderator.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing all right. Excited to be flying out to Iceland in about a week and a half.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I noticed you are an official Alliance Tournament 14 commentator, and I did notice you released a YouTube video about the Alliance Tournament.
Yeah, I just did the second in a series of videos I've been meaning to get put out about the Alliance Tournament as a whole.
Alright, so I'm gonna admit the fact that I did not watch these videos, but do you want to give everyone who is potentially in my boat and a slacker not watch them a rundown of what you talk about besides vaguely the Alliance Tournament?
So in the first video I did, I talked about why the tournament is important, just the sheer amount of money that is exchanged as a result of the prize pools going to any team's wallet, and how that's a major thing, how that's funded a lot of PL's replacements in the past, and how that's been a kind of a big part of their budget, and how that kind of money could have paid for World War B, things like that. The second video was talking more about the teams this year that are participating in the bracket and what implications I think that will have on matches going forward, and who I think will end up placing roughly where.
And you fly with the Tuskers, correct?
I'm in the Tuskers Alliance, but I'm not actually part of their Alliance tournament team this year.
Okay. So, because I've been hearing a lot about, I think it's Apothny who says the final match will be PL versus Tuskers. So I find it kind of funny that both a PL person and a Tuskers person is in here. Do you guys think that's at least remotely accurate, or that they're at least some of the top teams this year?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's so hard to say. Like, I think the top four teams, any one of the top four teams can win it, and I definitely put Tuskers and PL in the top four.
What about you, Mod?
The more I've been looking at the bracket, I think that because of the bracket that PL has, they really don't have to show a lot of their hand until the winners' semifinals and finals. To be quite honest, they have a pretty easy run of it, just due to the way the seeding broke down. I think that Exodus could do it, but they have a very difficult run, relatively speaking, through their winners bracket. Bitter Reloaded could do it as well, but they also actually face Exodus in the second round of the tournament, which is a lot earlier than I would have liked to see either of those two teams have to go to the losers bracket. And Tuskers could as well. I think it really is going to come down to who has the most stamina and who has the most setups remaining. That's traditionally been something that I think that Tuskers and Exodus have had trouble with, is that they just run out of setups and stamina. That happened to them in AT 11, 12, and 13, really. So, see what they can do to change that coming into this tournament.
Okay, and then for those watching, because I know people have been doing, based on the seeding, they've been trying to figure out what the brackets look like, but CCP has actually come out and officially given the brackets. So there's that, as well as the schedule, which I think is really interesting to see because obviously, moderator, you are going to broadcast live with from CCP's office and talk about it, or commentate on the Alliance tournament. But at the same time, this first weekend, I know Even T is going to be one of the few entities that's going to broadcast and stream and commentate on the Alliance tournament. But if you look at the schedule actually shows like two matchups at the same time, which isn't really fun for people who want to watch like the whole thing, because obviously you have to pick and choose what you see, or you can just kind of like idly watch both, I suppose.
Yeah, in the first week, it's actually really difficult because they try and get through as many matches as they can in a quick way, right? And they had to cut the Alliance tournament down from 4 weekends to 3 weekends, and this is how they did it. So they kind of do. The way it turns out is some of them are simultaneous, but you can almost transition right from the end of one to the start of another one, and then back and forth. So it's like constant in-your-face Alliance tournament action. It's actually really fun.
Yeah, and at least now that they come out with the schedule ahead of time, people can see, besides the winner of Series 1 versus winner of Series 2, they can still at least see what team they want to support or who they want to watch, because I think some of these teams are supposed to be super good matchups compared to completely one-sided wins. But that is where like my oh, hello. Okay, so Bay has joined us. But I was gonna say that's where like my absence of history in the Alliance tournament and the history of some of these teams kind of comes into play, where I don't know what's the best and what isn't. But hello, Bay.
Hello there. Sorry for being late.
You just came from Alliance tournament practice, correct?
I was listening in. I was actually watching the O7 show. My head's a little bit scratchy today. We had the event Nottingham meet up last night, so a little bit worse for wear today. So I wasn't flying practice, but I was listening into them, and yeah, it seems to be going pretty well. We're practicing. Yep, it's good.
Yeah, and who do you fly with again?
Ministry of Inappropriate Footwork.
Okay. So, that's just good for knowledge. What's their little ticker? Kick, right?
Kick, yeah, that's it. We're Kick. We've got Exodus in our first matchup for the Alliance tournament, so we're having to train really hard to have a hope of beating them, because obviously they're a really good team.
Yeah, that's what moderator was saying earlier. I think you were here for that. But yeah, so I'm looking at these, and so what I wanted to get to, because obviously I'm not an intelligent theory crafter, and I don't really care too much about all these like epic matchups that people talk about. I just really like watching people fly and watching close matches, regardless of who's in it. And so that's why I'm excited about next weekend, because instead of like, actually I don't think I will be having my show, but the Alliance tournament will be going on, and we will be streaming it here on this channel, EVNT TV. And so I'm actually super excited because I will be one of the people, I think, hopefully commentating on that. We have like a huge roster of people. I know, Bay, I think you're going to a live studio, which is what I have pictured in the background. Is that correct, with Nash and everyone?
Yes, we're going to be using the studio we used for the EVNT Nottingham show, which was streamed last night. We're going to be using the same studio. We've got a couple of techs involved. So it's a full professional TV studio setup, which should be really cool. So we're going to try and make it look as slick as possible. We're going to have people commentating from the arena. Unfortunately, we can't do both at once, but we're going to be covering one arena. So certainly, you'll be able to obviously watch all the action on the ISD streams. But if you want a bit more sort of insight into what's going on, if it doesn't make any sense to you, then tune into our channel. We'll be explaining things as we go along and reporting the action. Basically, we've got some. I think we've got Dintan's going to be commentating, moderator, Elise, yourself, Satonia, Apothony, Jisser, and Ryload. So a really good lineup of commentators.
Yeah, super excited for that. I know, sadly, obviously, us Americans can't just like casually travel over to Europe for a trip there, but it's going to be really exciting compared to prior years where we all have to kind of do it from our computers, and it's, I don't know, I want to say like a little disjointed with like, because obviously you can't make everything look professional through Skype, sadly.
True. We're going to do our best. The wonderful Biohazard is going to be streaming the action from the arena. We're going to be mixing that with the studio setup, so yeah, it should be pretty good.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And Elise, you run the tournaments, not the Alliance tournament, but the tournaments for EVNT itself, right?
Yeah, totally. Well, I don't know if run them is the best strains, but like is the best word. But yeah, I'm totally super involved, as is Bay, as are you, oddly enough. But yeah, the EVE Championship Series is going to be towards the end of this year, and it's going to be really, really fantastic. I cannot wait. Like, Bay's been doing some really cool stuff, making tools and coming up with the rules and stuff. And the teams involved are like, oh, the invites are all in. We know who the teams are going to be. It's fantastic. Like, it's going to be, I don't want to say it's going to be better than the Alliance tournaments, but it's going to be definitely entertaining in a completely different way in its own right.
Hopefully less stressful than the Alliance tournament, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, the way we built it is such that the players will want to compete without having to suffer through the burnout. And the burnout associated with Alliance tournament teams in the past and Alliance tournaments, and even like non-Alliance tournaments, just any sort of competitive EVE stuff. The burnout's always been because they've been run very similarly in very similar styles. So you have to theory craft a team, you have to practice it, blah 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 blah. But we've kind of eliminated some of those complexities and added new complexities, such that it's better to have kind of be a really good thinker and theory crafter in the moment, rather than practice a certain setup for 20 hours or whatever.
Yeah, it's definitely a bit more casual. Vitor has been programming a banning system, so the complexity is going to be in that hopefully when we polish it off. So team captain's going to have to ban. It's not just pick 3 bans. There's going to be a kind of pick ban system similar to a lot of other MOBAs, which will kind of make things a little bit more interesting, I think. And then the competitors will fly pre-fit ships, so they can just use the old multi-fit tool and on Thunderdome and summon their ships from Thidda, which makes things a lot easier, a lot cheaper, and a lot less stressful, hopefully. So they can just really focus on practicing being great pilots.
Awesome. And with both this tournament, like the EVNT Championship, as well as the Alliance tournament, I did notice Logibro mentioned eSports, not EVE Sports with the VE at the end, but more of eSports. Do you guys see EVE in any way moving towards that direction of sort of like you mentioned MOBAs, Bay, like kind of like League of Legends or Dota, or like kind of this homegrown grassroots tournament style with all these crazy fans and whatnot?
EVE is really not built for tournaments, let's say. It's very, obviously, the sandbox nature of EVE. Running tournaments on TQ has always been super, super difficult, like making them fair and even, and making it so other players can't interrupt them is like super difficult. So it's like incredibly difficult to grow an esports scene on TQ. So a number of people have tried, and some entertaining success, but never really had managed to pull off anything stable. So we've always really pushed for a kind of separate server or something, or some tools to support tournaments, because they are really popular, particularly with kind of sort of your more bitter vet sort of small gang solo PvPers. A lot of them do stay in the game just for Alliance tournament because that's like what they get really excited about. It's really, it's a really good arena for them to showcase their small gang PvP skills against other small gang PvPers, because a lot of the time they end up, fighting blobs and stuff. But obviously in the arena, it's like a really true test of your piloting skill. So Logibro has done fantastic work. Can't praise him enough in managing to persuade ZSpeed to create a server dedicated for events and tournaments, not just tournaments but also events. He said things like the Titan Mashi, is it? I can never pronounce it properly. So hopefully be able to accommodate more things like that, which again are really hard to organize on TQ. So yeah, it's like Thunderdome server is really awesome. It's got a lot of potential, and I think the idea is just they're going to just see how it develops and see where it goes, and the more sort of community people that get involved with organizing things, hopefully CSP will be able to give more and more support to that aspect of the game.
Yeah, Eve players are really, really creative when you give them the tools to do stuff. And just echoing what Bay said before, like Eve isn't a game that's very conducive to traditional like 5-on-5 esports type of things, but we sort of shoehorn and force the tournament in the like that structure into Eve instead of it occurring organically. Sorry, my tongue's tied today. But when you have stuff like the Thunderdome server, there are different cool little events that players can start running without begging CCP for help for some small events. So they can start small and maybe grow into something big, or maybe just start small and stay small. Like sometimes these small events are really fun. So I'm really excited to see what's going to happen in the next year. So I know EVNT isn't going to be the only ones running events there, and just knowing that makes me quite excited.
Okay, and then moderator, you correct me if I'm wrong, but is your background in commentating other like tournaments outside of Eve?
So I've done some commentary for Wargaming North America. World of Tanks is the game I've done some commentary for. So yeah, I've done a bit of that in the past. Nothing on a large scale, but I do have some background commentating.
Alright, so I am not too familiar with, what was it? What was the game? World of Warships?
World of Tanks.
World
yeah.
of Tanks. Okay. So all these games have World of something in them, like World of Warcraft. But yeah, so World of Tanks, is that kind of, because I think I've seen that played, so I don't think it's sandbox open world like Eve is. So is that, but it's also not a MOBA. So it's not like a Dota, like League of Legends or like Heroes of New Earth type game where it's very simple and structured with very simple like spectator mode with watching for tournaments. Is World of Tanks also kind of like similar to Eve where it's kind of a struggle to like have tournaments as well where it's more grassroots like you said with coming up small, or is it a little bit larger on the Dota League end?
Right now, there's actually in America, I believe it's about a $200,000 cash prize pool in North America alone.
Wow.
That's every year, I believe. So I used to do that semi-professionally, but I don't have the time to invest into that anymore. So I've moved on to commentating some side events for Wargaming.
Okay, that's pretty impressive. Holy cow. Although I want to say the prize ships for the Alliance tournament, when you convert that to real life money, like how much does that equate to?
Well, my title in the videos I made as clickbaity as possible, so I said roughly about $250,000 if you convert that flex, because the amount of skins you get, if you call the cruisers, that you get about 140 billion, and your frigates anywhere from, say, 110 to 120 plus all the limited edition skins you get. It comes to, I believe, about 16, 17 billion roughly. or trillion rather.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Okay.
So if you buy that in Plex, it's a couple $100,000. But
So it's
of course,
not.
there's no way legally to convert that into cash.
Yeah, it's not like these players or the winners of the Lions tournament get real life money. It's just only in game. But I mean, I guess like when you compare that to World of Tanks, which have something similar. I mean, it's not millions like Dota does or whatever, but that's actually pretty crazy expensive for the amount of prizes given out to people who, like Bay said, may only play just for the Alliance tournament.
And it's funny, like you would consider like that much ISK to be a big draw for these like large soft-holding alliances to take note of it. But instead, what you get is you get a lot of these small groups who become incredibly, incredibly incensed and really interested in the alliance tournament and everything around it. So the smaller groups tend to be the ones that are much, much more competitive and much better, and have much better track record. Like a hilarious thing is if you've looked at in the alliance tournament for the last 5 years or so, like some of the biggest groups like Test and Goonswarm, they've always done hilariously bad in the alliance tournament. Well, actually, Test has done decently well.
Test are pretty good. I don't think.
I actually always white knight Test because I think they're way better. But like Goons are awful at the alliance tournament, and you're just showing like trillions of disc in front of them. If they have the talent, they have the brains to do this sort of thing. They've got like the people to do it as well, but they just kind of gloss over it for one reason or another.
I don't know how much of that is cultural and how much of them is actually having the talent. I mean, I know they've got good theory crafting and they've got good, some good FCs, but I don't know how much of that actually translates into like good individual mechanical play because Goonswarm, I mean, they don't really recruit those kind of players who are interested in that kind of a style in the tournament, whereas some of the smaller entities, their recruitment standards are more conducive to that kind of play. But it is weird that you would think that an entity that's got thousands of characters would be able to do, I mean, a bit better than what these alliances have done in the past.
I mean, also like to that point a little bit, like even if you think that these players are, or if you think Goons don't attract that type of player, the fact that it's worth so much, you think they would go out and recruit that type of player and make them want to stay.
I think it's interesting. I think one of the factors that a lot of people miss is I think alliances that do really well aren't really alliances. They're often kind of corps that are really close. And I'm certainly speaking from my corp, we're a very small group of players. Our max CTA is probably like 15 people, so we're not a very big group of players, and we know each other really well. And communication on grid in the arena is like super important. And I think if you have a small group of players that play together all the time and know each other really, really well, that's definitely a huge advantage in the Alliance tournament. I think, traditionally we look at Hydra, Exodus, Camel, these are kind of like small gang PvPers. They kind of like, they know each other's voices. They don't have to, they can say, I need reps, exactly who it is, because you know the voice and you know how they are. So I think that definitely has an advantage. And I think maybe the bigger alliances like Goons, for example, they don't have that kind of, that tight-knit kind of little groups. They're obviously much bigger organizations, and they used to much bigger kind of a different way of flying in fleets, I guess. Maybe that's a factor. But then obviously you do have big alliances take part and do really well. Obviously, like Pandemic Legion was obviously one. But I think I don't know for sure, but I think like the alliance tournament team within PL is kind of like a smaller group within a bigger group.
Yeah, essentially the way it works in PL is we just create a group of the alliance tournament group, and we just poach members from PL. And those members don't have to meet any activity metrics during the 4 months of practice and stuff like that. So kind of, to your point, it kind of makes a small group from a larger group. But I'm just curious as to what you guys think of why other like larger alliances can't get in on this train too, because there's so much money there, especially after they've restructured the prizes in the last 3 years or whatever.
So
I think
I was gonna say
maybe
Battledog.
to some extent. Sorry, go ahead, Rain.
I was gonna say Battledog point out in chat. Safe to say anyone at the top end aren't hurting for ISK. So Goons themselves, they find instead of sending these like I guess maybe 20 people out to practice for hours on end, it's better just to throw them in like ships to do ratting or to collect ISK and doing PvE out in Nullsec or wherever they are now compared to wherever they were in the past. Maybe that was their strategy, was just is more effective use of their time than potentially gambling on how good they are versus another team. But go on.
I think there's sort of a case to be made there when, okay, so last year you had what I'll call the very like tier 1 teams, right, where you think any one of these teams can really probably win the tournament and is likely to, which would have been Camel, Warlords, PL, right? Any one of those three you expect to win the tournament last year. And then you kind of had the teams like directly below, kind of like Hard Knocks, you had Tri, you had Exodus, you had Tuskers. And I think with last year you're having so much depth and parity, and there being a little bit less depth and parity this year, I think that some alliances in the past just decided, okay, well, we can't even make top 8 really because there's all these super experienced, try-hard teams that are just going to beat us out. And I think this year actually, I don't understand why more teams aren't going for it, because first and second place from last year aren't entering.
Well, they're not entering under the same names, but a lot of the pilots are still participating in different groups.
Yeah, a lot
Some
of
of
them
them
are
are.
still. I mean, it's kind of interesting because those pilots have spread out now. So I think it's interesting to see because their wealth of both experience and in tournamentships they've won in previous tournaments.
That's the
I
thing,
know
though.
you've
like,
had pilots go to
most of us
NCDAR.
aren't playing anymore.
Yeah.
I think somewhere more than half of them are playing though in the tournament in some capacity or another. Though the theory crafters are definitely just not participating at all.
Yeah.
At least that's what it seems to me, because I know PL managed to pick up quite a few like Hydra refugees, I guess I would call them, like Blue Melon and Casper. Really incredible pilots, and it's actually transformed a lot of how PL's done testing, because before PL's always been probably, I'd say, the absolute best team when it comes to theory crafting, and absolutely mundane and average when it comes to pilot skill. And now we have incredibly good pilots in a lot of positions. Before we just have to beat into them like muscle memory from just practicing the setups over and over again. But a lot of these adding these new pilots made practicing a lot easier, because we had just had more pilots that we could test with who were very, very good pilots in their own right.
One of the things I kind of mentioned is that Apophany actually picked Lumpy to go, I think, like 3rd overall or something, because apparently there's some like great influx of Camel and Warlords players on that team, and like it's kind of like absolutely not true. Actually, there's Leo Kokum.
Yeah, I think it's only Leo, isn't it?
It's literally just Leo Kokum, and there's Rylode, and Rylode never actually made any of the rosters for either team. So,
Well, I mean, if there are Helas in the Alliance tournament, then perhaps they'll do really, really well.
yeah. If Helas were good in the AT, then I think Leo Kokum and Lumpy would do very well. But I don't know. I think a lot of people just decided that they were done with the tournament, and I think a lot of that was misdirected at CCP, and they were just not happy with what happened.
I mean,
So,
well, with what happened, because like a lot of people blame 1 or 2 individuals over what happened last year with the collusion. And like honestly, if I had spent all that time and thought I had won, or at least gotten second, I probably wouldn't do it at all either. Especially with the people who may or may not have known. Like I think it was a lot of I want to say not emotional, but like a lot of like things outside of the game and things outside of CCP's control. Because obviously it was a drama, like a drama bomb, and shit happened. And I think a lot of people were upset by it because all their hard work was just gone to nothing, and now their name was tarnished.
I think it was 50-50. A lot of the people who blame CCP what happened aren't playing anymore and will never be playing again. Most of the people who were like, okay, what the leadership did was stupid, are still playing. So draw your own conclusions from that.
Okay.
It's still a lot of like I've never had this happen, but like, or PL has never had this happen, but I could imagine like the amount of like time and energy that you put into the Alliance tournament. It actually accounts for like 3 months of heartache. Like I don't know how other teams practice necessarily, like on the other side of the curtain, but like when you practice in PL, you begin to hate one another. It's like the most dysfunctional family reunion ever that lasts for 3 months. Like you love everyone, but you absolutely hate dealing with the people in that moment, and you absolutely just dread these like moments of conflict and stuff like that after like 1 or 2 months.
I'm glad to say I've actually never had that experience with Exodus or with Camel.
I guess that must be like how you forge winners then.
Learn to love each other.
Yeah, you learn to force some sort of family through like the hardship of practicing and stuff like that. I don't know. I probably make it sound a lot more awful than it is. I spent like 40 hours a week, probably close to 40 hours a week the last like 4 years, doing Alliance Tournament stuff for 2 to 3 months. And although I dreaded it, I also loved it at the same time because it's one of those things where you play Eve. Like the reason you play Eve as a PvPer is for those moments like of fights and stuff, like for those great little adrenaline bursts, and you have to like go out and seek them all. That's why they're so rewarding, because they can be very fleeting sometimes. But when you practice in the Alliance Tournament, you always get these top caliber fights, always happening like 10 times a day, and you just kind of binge on them a little bit. So it's quite lovely.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the reasons that I was in the event. I was also wanting the prestige of coming in first or
I was
placing
recently
well.
I was recently rewatching a bunch of old footage. I was putting together a video for the event we did this weekend. And I obviously I do know quite a lot about Alliance tournament history. I've watched a lot of old footage. I've taken part a couple of years, but until I went back through this old footage, I didn't quite grasp how deep the kind of like Hydra PL rivalry went. And I guess it's interesting that that's dead now. Like I'm really excited actually about what the next rivalry is going to be. You know, like it's interesting. Like before, I think there was a huge skill gap between the top and the bottom team, or top and even the top 2, 3, 4 teams and everyone else. There was a huge skill gap. Whereas now, I think the skill gap's closed a ton. And seeing which of the sort of top teams that rise to the top, and the kind of like the drama and the kind of the transfers between the teams and all the teams break up and all the bitching and all this kind of, the sort of thing that comes out is actually really exciting for me to see who's going to be the next rivalries. This year is going to be a new, fresh bunch of fun, I think. I don't know if I'm making much sense.
No, it makes
Oh no,
sense.
you totally are, and that's like one of my favorite things too. Is just I don't know if it's the rivalries, but like the interactions between the groups, because it always feels like that interaction is always there, like no matter what. Like I know every time we play the Hun team, like there's always the pilots on either side know each other like the back of one another's hand. Like we've literally faced each other every year for the last like 6 years. And it's always been like a lot of the time, like they've been like the obstacle to our success, or we've been the obstacles to their success. And it feels like we have one another's number. And the same is true for, I know, Darkside, and although they've changed their names a few times to the Alliance Tournament, like those pilots have a similar feeling.
I think the big matchup this year that you're going to see for rivalry is going to be Tuskers and Exodus. I think there's a very good chance we see them face each other in the winners semifinals and then again in the losers finals.
Yeah, I think that's a very strong chance. They're both really strong. Yeah, I think that's definitely a likely scenario. Be interesting to see.
Kind of along that same line, do you guys have any matches you're looking forward to this first weekend that look to be either like a good matchup or potentially like a close match where like both sides probably should progress, but obviously they're facing each other in the first round?
Vidra and Exodus, without question. It's by far the best match of the first weekend.
Who was that?
Vidra are loaded, so it's going to be Lucy Lou's group and Exodus.
Okay.
No faith, moderator. No faith.
Sorry.
On the first day, I'm really excited for. I'm gonna watch like all of Exodus's matches. I'm gonna be watching like all of PL's matches, obviously. But I'm also gonna I think the Tuskers and Waffles match, which is on the first day. It's like the first half of the first day. I think that could be a really good match. Like, these first matches, they're always kind of like a little bit weird. You're always a bit cagey with what you want to show and stuff like that. And there's always like the threat of the meta as well. Like, I know a lot of times people have bribed other teams and fed them fits when they're coming up against PL. And I know the same is true against all the big teams. Like, if there's a small team going up against the big team, you usually get the other big teams whispering in the other guy's ear, telling them what to do and how to play and stuff. So there's always like there's a gamble going into the very, very first matches. And Waffles aren't scrubs. Obviously, they're not at the same caliber as Tuskers, but it'll be interesting to see what the Tuskers will field and how strong they think Waffles are.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of my kind of match no one is talking about, but I think might be good is Northern Coalition versus White Legion. Definitely see Northern Coalition being a little bit more tryhard this year. They've certainly got the resources. They've got the manpower to do internal testing. I don't really know anyone from their tournament team, but I think they picked up a couple of
Picked
Hydra
up guys
pilots,
from
didn't they?
Nully.
They have Wildcat.
Picked up guys from.
Was it Nully?
Nully, they got DHP Wildcat.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Wildcat.
exactly. So they've definitely picked up a couple of guys who really know the tournament scene. They definitely got a lot of money to throw at it. They're stupidly rich, so I wouldn't be. And they've obviously got connections. They could probably purchase the right ships and things. And then White Legion, obviously, I've got some pretty decent PvPers.
Gorski.
And
Yeah,
they've been Gorski. There's a bunch of French players. Some who did the Amar tournament did pretty well. So I think that could be an interesting match. That's definitely what I'm looking forward to watching.
So there was a question in chat by Battledog, if you guys know him, and he says,
Yeah.
"Who is your money on this year? Like, if you had to bet on people."
I definitely will be betting, that's for sure, because I love betting on Lions tournaments. It's the only time of year I ever bet on anything at all, because I'm usually just terrible at guessing things. But I think if we're just going to go for overall winner, I'm going to have to pick the Tuskers, just because they seem really tight and they're really, really motivated, and they've gone out of their way to get the right people and right equipment for this Alliance tournament. I think they're ready to win. So
Yeah, the Tuskers have always been impressed with how they've flown in especially the last 3 Alliance tournaments. From Alliance Tournament 11 onwards, I've noticed that Tuskers were incredibly competitive, and a lot of things that held them back was their either ability or willingness to field the Alliance tournament ships. And with the rule change this year, where AT ships you're limited to only 1, I think that'll really benefit a team like Tuskers, who were just on the verge of getting to the top of the mountain, but
yeah,
for whatever reason couldn't source enough ships for that type of endeavor.
I was in the Tuskers 8011 team, and I can definitely state that we didn't have any Alliance tournament ships then to use. We didn't have anything. We were kind of starting from scratch. There were a bunch of they were mostly solo PvPers. They did a little bit of small gang, a lot of strong solo PvPers, not particularly rich guys, because they spend most of the time PvPing and not getting ships blown up and not building them. So yeah, definitely that first year we didn't have anything to use, and then obviously we came 4th, so they picked up 3 what were they called? Whiptails and 3 of the cruisers that I forget the name. Chameleons, was it?
Yeah, Chameleon.
And so they've had those to trade and move around and swap with other ships. And then obviously the last year they won some Fiends, and I forget the frigate. That's not particularly useful, but those Fiends are going to be so strong. We haven't trained against any teams that have used it yet, but my suspicion is that one ship rule, the one Alliance tournament ship rule, is going to really, really favour the Fiends, because it's like a really, obviously that 37k point, crazy tank, afterburner, hard to pin down. I wouldn't be surprised if Tuskers brought that quite often, because they've probably got a few to use.
Yeah, I think if we're going to go with like sort of kind of 2 things at once, but like you talked about something really interesting. So like the Atana and the Fiend, I think are going to be the AT ships that you see all the time. And I think you're going to see them more often than you saw AT ships outside of the last weekend last year. Outside of the last weekend last year, they were pretty rare to see. And then the last weekend last year was absolutely just insane with just AT ships after AT ships. There was like one setup with like 12 or like 8 AT ships between the 2 teams. That was amazing.
So who's your money
but
on,
for
at
the
least?
teams that I think is going to win, I definitely think FPL is going to win. And to Dave's point, you absolutely should go to EveBet and start betting on these teams. Like, I don't work with EveBet. I don't get any money if you guys go there. I can't give you anything for it, but it actually absolutely makes watching it way more fun. Because then you have something to root for. It's not just like, you're not just watching like TNT versus whoever TNT is facing, right? TNT always does the most like clowny, hilarious shit anyways. But if you have money on them winning, then it's like, oh, this is clowny shit, and I really want them to win, so I'm like super emotionally invested in it. So that's the best way to
TNT's
get into
facing
it.
Lumpy, so.
Okay, well, hopefully they ban Gila, and then we just see what happens.
Eve Barras, like, I know Mordray needs to tell us who he thinks is going to win as well, but like Eve Barra, super supportive of any kind of esports in Eve. They've given us a bunch of money to help get Collide started. They're going to be sponsoring the championship. They sponsor our live tournament. They obviously do, they I wouldn't say they throw money at people. You have to have something good to go to, for them to sponsor. But they're certainly very supportive of the tournament scene. So if you do lose a bunch of money, at least you know it's going to end up going back into the game somehow.
All right, moderator.
So you want to know my predictions then?
Yeah.
God, Tusker's gonna hate me for this, but I'm gonna say PL because I know nothing about the Tuskers team this year. I think
Alright.
PL picking up Casper and Blue Melon really helps them out a lot, and I think more teams needed to pick up players from Camel and Hydra and recruit them aggressively, and no one did that. So I think PL just has better depth of setups and theory crafting than anyone else, really.
The other day I was sitting in Amamake. This is kind of going to be a long ass story, but it has relevance, trust me. But I was sitting in Amamake, and I had been friends with Casper since I started streaming over a year ago. And he's like, hey Rain, join our fleet. So I'm just like docked in a station and a slasher. So he invites me to the fleet. And then I get on their comms, and they're actually all sitting there talking about Alliance tournament stuff, and they apparently had this, like, elaborate spreadsheet of, like, things going on, and who has what, and how well people are doing, and what needed to be improved, and all this and that, and, like, they had, like, this whole, they wouldn't, tell me more about it, but it sounded like they, even though they were all in Amamake, just flying around doing, like, dumb shit with Alliance tournament ships, they were all super focused on the Alliance tournament. I know Blue Melon was there. I think TikTok was there, even though I know TikTok's not with PL for the Alliance tournament team. But they were all just like constantly talking about it and like posting stuff or like, oh, check out this. Like, what if we try that? And then I know they mentioned Apothony for PL, and apparently, because we all know Apothony was a commentator the last couple of years, and he actually is still even though he's not a commentator this year, he's still super involved because apparently he's doing a lot of theory crafting and all this meta type setup stuff. It was really interesting to see because I'd never really seen that end of it, and like I honestly had no idea what they were talking about because like it made no sense to me, but it sounded like they were still like super involved trying to get set up like practices and making sure that they were going to things and whatnot. So it was really interesting to see from the outside as somebody who's never really flown in the Alliance tournament, let alone been with people who fly in the Alliance tournament. But yeah, Casper was a good addition to the PL team.
The AT pilots definitely speak a completely different language, and I know a lot of the times, like in previous years, PL would name their setups after certain things, as would Hydra and Camel, and we went after like Dota heroes and Dota themes. So all of our teams were completely Dota themed in what they did and sort of their
Is that
names.
Dangle or Black Horizon?
That was mostly Black Horizon and Goblins doing that. And sometimes we had like political themed ones. I know for Alliance 111 we had some Obama themed ones. So I mean, it's really great when you can just if you just listen to some of these pilots talk. It just sounds like they're speaking a completely different language, right? It was like, oh, Spurge Obama works really well against Timbersaw, and you have literally no idea what they're saying. So it's completely spy-proof in that regard.
That's how it felt, and like, I think they started talking about like using formulas and stuff, which I have no idea if this was like some elaborate way to figure out max DPS in the Alliance tournament or something, but it was like ridiculous of what they were talking about with like math and whatnot with the spreadsheet or whatever the hell they were using. It was actually really funny to listen to, especially having no idea. Oh, so
yeah, one of the neat things that other teams do is they put together sort of these tools, out of game tools, kind of like EFT. It's you kind of come up with a tool for theory crafting teams, and it comes with like max deeps, max tank, average speed, and stuff like that. Because like when you're testing, you have to test against the extremes. Because what if you can never tell what like some crazy team's gonna do? Like Shadow Cartel, I think last year and the year before, were these insane people. They'd always take so much DPS and only frigate logi. So they would always have these like insane DPS teams. So you have to be prepared for that because like if your control team can't handle 9,000 DPS or whatever, um, even though it's a better control team on paper, like it can do so much more, they just die to this completely ridiculous thing that Shadow Cartel fields. And that's kind of like Shadow Cartel, like in Alliance Tournament 12, was my favorite team, like #1 favorite team to watch.
So who's your money on, Rain?
Oh, so Battledog asked me in chat, and I'm one of those people that I always just vote for my friends and cheer for my friends. And the people I used to fly with are in Pasty, the Finnish group, and I'm cheering for them, especially because like I love underdogs, and they're clearly underdogs, so I'm cheering for them.
Basically, cool guys. Yeah.
Also, for those in chat, I apologize because we have a new bot now, and it likes to get ban happy, so I'm so sorry. I will immediately unban you if you get banned. Please don't use caps. Apparently, I hates that.
I'm sorry to Battlelog for saying that. I think that PL probably wins. I think Exodus and Tuskers are a close second, though.
And are you guys going to like be actually betting money on these people, like on EveBet?
Oh, I've already dropped 40 bill on the tournament.
Moderator was
Oh,
poking
Mr.
me the other day,
Moneybags over
like,
there.
Bay, who's going to win out this match? Who's going to win out this match? I thought he was trying to get tips for commentating, and then he was like, and then I realized he was going down the EVET list. I was like, damn you.
That's funny.
It should be good. I definitely always bet, particularly on the. I bet less and less as it usually as it goes through because you get the bet. It's putting money on like one or another team to win when it gets later stages is a big risk because obviously really close. She can lose a ton of money, but certainly early on, I think it's good fun to bet on those kind of like matches where you might know a little bit more about an alliance than the general public will. So, for example, I'm trying to find an example now, but I can't. For example, in Northern Coalition, like most people may think, Northern Coalition, they're just big blob, super cat blobby warfare kind of guys, and they won't have a clue about the tournament, and maybe if you've heard otherwise, put some money on them, that kind of thing. So get your ear to the ground, ask around if you know an alliance pretty well. Have a chat with them, see how their practices have been going. Maybe you can make some money, taking a risk on them. So it's good fun.
Do you guys have?
I definitely did that last year when I knew a lot more about the strength of teams because I was spying on them. But this year I just don't know much. So, sorry, go ahead, Rain.
I was gonna say, do you guys have like a favorite underdog team or a team that's like kind of maybe middle tier that probably won't win, but like if they pull something off because they're underestimated,
Yes.
they could like. Who's your favorite?
I've got a team I'm going to be supporting this year. They're actually called Polarized. I believe they're a Wormhole Corp, and they seem pretty small, but they bring some really wacky. I did this show for the open test practices before Thunderdome opened, and they brought some really crazy setups like shield tank dummies, and they brought like a quad Typhoon setup with bellicoses, just some really out of the box things. And I love it when teams try those sort of crazy things, and they were actually working a couple of times. So I don't think they'll go particularly deep into the tournament, but I'm really excited to see what they bring, just because I think they'll bring something really unexpected, and that might just throw a big team off, and cause an upset, which is everyone loves the upsets.
I'm really excited to watch QB Freeport Republic because in our Event T series, like when we did the Fight Club, they always brought like the most ridiculous setups that shouldn't work. A lot of the times they didn't work, but some of the times they did anyways. But they were never afraid to bring like completely ridiculous stuff. Solar Fleet is like notorious for being ultra clowny, but kind of by accident. They just guess the meta wrong just slightly, and they take stuff like Abaddon's. So I kind of want to see like how they do because they've got like incredibly good talent. Like they've got good PvPers. They've got smart people, but they always just do something a little bit ridiculous. So I'm excited for that. And I'm also excited to see the TNT team. The TNT team is the one that actually orbited all their people on an anchor in the last 2 years. Like they all had an anchor and they just hit F1 approach. And they got really far for a team that would do that. I'm excited to see how they would do.
You two can place in the top 8 if you just anchor your way through the AT.
Yeah, they were literally Mr. Magoo for Alliance 2012. Like they did the most ridiculous inane stuff, and then it somehow worked out in their favor. And it was amazing just to see how they were going to screw up but succeed.
What about you, Mod?
Again, Phoebe Freeport, because it's even though their alliance is kind of broken up, and I touched them on the bit in the video, casual sellout. A group that I really want to see be able to retain their top 16 seed. I think they've got a bit of a work cut out for them to do. Test as well, actually. Soldaris, ever since he took over the AT team, has made Test kind of not a joke. They used to be kind of really awful, and they don't have the greatest player skill, but try really hard and they put a lot of effort into it, and it's actually paid off for them quite well in the last 2 years. So I want to see how far they can get.
Awesome. And
Yeah, Alliance Tournament. Alliance Tournament 10 is when Test started taking it super seriously, and they had a strict regimen for testing, and they had a really small, tight-knit testing group and stuff like that. And it's really paid dividends for them. They've gotten some incredibly good pilots out of it, and their piloting skill in the Alliance Tournament is actually really, really good. I'd say it's definitely top 8 worthy. So I'm always excited to watch Test. And they had some really, really innovative setups last year. They had this pseudo Tinker team with a completely bait tanked Blackbird that everyone would always just bite on. Those are the type of teams that can get you past that next hump in the Alliance Tournament. If you just have these really well designed teams that aren't copied from someone else. Because when you copy a team, the team that you copy it from knows exactly how those teams work, right? So a lot of the times you see mid-tier teams and lower-tier teams copy from the likes of PL and Hydra. They just blatantly take those teams and make them work for themselves, and that helps those top-tier teams influence the meta. So it gives this predictability aspect to it, which the top-tier teams really, really love, right? Because they can, when they have a team, when you make a team, you know how to construct it and deconstruct it. You know its strengths and weaknesses. You practice against it constantly. So when other people adopt those, then you've got a massive advantage, no matter what. But Test said, you know what, we're not going to copy these great teams. We're going to make our own great teams. And they definitely had something completely unique last year. So I'm really excited to see what they'll do this year.
So, my favorite kind of middle tier team, or underdog team, besides obviously Pasty, but I really like the Ronin. That was because I know their Logi pilot Lilu, and I've seen a lot of their small game clips outside of the Alliance tournament. I think they did pretty well last year. I don't know if they did top 16, but they did at least decent.
They made top 6 actually.
Oh, sweet! I'm so good at this. Okay, yeah, I'm definitely cheering for them though, especially the Logi, because I love watching Logi.
Yep, the Ronin are a really good Alliance Tournament team. They've got a pretty good Alliance Tournament pedigree as well. They won, They won the Tribal Tempests, which was second place in Alliance Tournament 5, I think. They came second to Band of Brothers, which was a dynasty team in the first 6 years of the Alliance Tournament. So there's definitely no shame in that. And yeah, they're really, really good. Another good team that you guys should watch out for, which many people probably in the know won't really know too much about. It's actually, that's a lie, but the Free Gates team, they're essentially the old Hun team and the old Nully team from last year. They're really, really good flying under a new name. So if you want to impress your friends or make some money on EVEBet, definitely kind of throw some money that way. They're really good to watch and incredibly, incredibly talented.
There was a guy from Free Gates came second in our live tournament last night. Him and a guy from Googstorm ended up coming second. Yeah, they flew really well. It was awesome to watch. It was nice to have someone from Free Gates over. It was cool.
Unfortunately for Free Gates, they've kind of lost a lot of their core to to NC Dot and some other teams, and except for their leadership, the intel I've been getting on them is that most of their players aren't still around, and it's mostly a rebuilding team. But I don't know how much truth there is to that, unless people are just trolling me. But you can see how far they can get as well.
And another team to look forward to that every time I look at these top 8 brackets or whatever, I never see them mentioned for some reason. It's the Volta team. I think Volta is an incredibly strong tournament team. I think they're easily top 6.
Yeah.
I have them as top 4 in my bracket.
Yeah, I definitely put them top 4 as well. Like a lot of people shy away from putting them in there, but people forget that they've won the Alliance tournament before. They won Alliance tournament 10.
Yep.
Under, I think they were flying as Tri that year. I don't know.
They were under verge of collapse that year.
Oh, there you go. They were verge of collapse, and then they
Yep.
flew as Tri one year and did very well as well. But that core is in Volta, and they're incredibly great pilots.
They are.
I know. I think Lysis flies with them as well, and he came second in the Mar Championships.
They've
So-
also picked up some players from the Theraboys, so just like random like small gang players as well that I know are personally talented. They picked up, I think, Bali and TikTok as well, so some very good players are going to be joining that roster as well.
I was chatting
Yeah,
to
so
their
it's-
theory crafter yesterday, and they seem really on it. I don't know why I didn't mention them before. Actually, I think they're definitely a top 4 contender. Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, Volta is definitely one of the teams that won out from Camel and Hydra sort of splitting up a little bit, or having those players split up a little bit. I'd say NC Dot is a major winner, and Volta is a major winner. Even though Volta didn't pick up any of the pilots that I know of, they just leapfrogged a lot of the competition just by virtue of being how good and talented they are.
You guys get really excited over these teams. It's like makes me look really forward to next weekend.
Yeah, it is literally my favorite part of Eve. Like, this is the one thing in Eve that I look forward to all the time, regardless of how I'm feeling about the game or what state I am in the game, if I'm burned out or FCing or whatever I'm doing. Like, this is a nice little break. I love everything about it. It's so weird, it's so wonky and so bizarre. Like, this type of combat doesn't happen on the real server. Like, these interactions don't ever happen on the real server, and just to watch them play out in this format is so exciting and so enjoyable.
Going back to Volta, I think they're probably PL's only real chance of an upset, and they don't face them until the winner's semifinal brackets. So that'll be a really exciting match to watch. Both those teams are almost guaranteed to make it that far.
I'm personally hoping PL loses that match because we always do very well when we come from the losers bracket, as do all the winners. They all come from the losers bracket, it feels like. So I kind of want to go there. That's about as early as I'd like to be in the losers bracket, honestly. But
I definitely recommend if people something just thought of them when you said like if you've never heard of the Alliance tournament, you might be watching before. You've never watched the Alliance tournament before. Go back and watch some of the old ones. There's some cracking footage there on CCP's page, and a lot of there's even videos of like player perspective action. There's tons and tons, hours and hours of footage on YouTube, and some really good matches. There's a lot of boring matches as well, but if you sift through them, you can find some really fun stuff to watch and get an idea of what how it all plays out before you go into watching it. Because watching it, coming in and never not having a clue what's going on it can be tough to figure out what's actually happening. So yeah, go back and watch some old stuff, and particularly the rival. Any match between like PL and Hydra, the rivalry is brilliant, and the match is always really tense, and you can hear it in the commentators' voices. It's great.
yeah, the excitement from the commentators. Having been a commentator for the last 2 years, it's like you can feel something in the air during the Alliance tournament, and when a great match is on. See, like one of the things you don't get to see too much in front of the camera until the very, very end of the last day is how many people are involved in it. Like, there's an entire studio in the background doing stuff, and there's a bunch of judges and refs and GMs and stuff. And just for one of the matches last year, it was the match between, I can't remember which one it was because it was a section where I was off. It was where PL fielded a bunch of Mirages for the first time.
Oh yeah.
And like everyone in the entire building was standing on their feet, just like huddled over this little monitor, trying to watch what happens, like in the production studio, just waiting to see what happened. And then the production guys would start yelling at us because we would start cheering whenever one was getting close to dying. They're like, "Dude, we're filming, like we're one room over. Just shut up for like the next 5 minutes, okay?" It was
I
so
remember
good.
flying in that match actually.
Holy shit! I was rewatching a lot. If you want, actually a good place to start if you want to go back and watch some other stuff, go back and watch the. It was you that reminded me of it at least the other day. The final series of Alliance Tournament 11. So it was PL coming in from losers bracket and Hydra going in having undefeated, and it was a best of 5. And it actually went all the way to 5 matches, and that last match was super close. And yeah, very very good series to watch. So go if you've got an hour to kill, a couple of hours to kill. Go and watch that series if you want to get an idea of what AT is about and get some of the hype going. It's really, really good stuff.
Yeah, the Alliance Tournament 11 is. I said it earlier in the show. It's my favorite Alliance Tournament by far. Just it marks a turning point in like modern Alliance tournaments. Like that was the perfect Alliance tournament to watch. Like the finals were amazing. The matches going up to the finals were amazing. The varied theory crafting was incredible. I loved it.
Can we just quickly talk about how much better teams have gotten overall? And I mean literally every team has gotten since AT 10 and 11.
Yeah.
Yeah, for that's like ever since Alliance tournaments, I think 8 and 9. That's when Alliance tournament their teams have gotten stronger and stronger. And I think you mentioned it as well after Alliance Tournament 11. Just the middle of the road teams, like you could transport any of them back in time to like Alliance Tournament 6, 7, 8, and I think they'd win. Like if you took Tuskers and threw them back in time like 5 years, they'd be the dominant team. I could imagine if you took Test from like last year and threw them back to Alliance Tournament 8 or 9, they'd crush. Like the amount of work ethic that these teams are putting forward from like the middle of the pack onward is just incredible.
I remember, I think it was last year's event, and Garmin was there, and I was getting drunk. We were chatting. He was like, who do you fly for? You know, I was like, oh, Ministry and pray for. He's like, I hate you guys. I was like, why? Like, cause I remember you and like Agony and Test. I think it was in AT11. Like these kind of like lower to middle teams that started like trying as hard as us, which made it mean that we had to raise our game like a lot higher, because before then it was just like really easy to get to the final.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it is those middle teams that push up the quality and force the top tier teams, you know, to try even harder to make sure they've got everything on point. So, you know, the community as a whole is generally getting better and better each year because of that, I think.
Yeah, but you can. There are very, very, very few like these gimme games, right, where you could just do whatever and win. Previously, there were just a lot. I remember, I think my first Alliance tournament that I flew in was Alliance Tournament 7. It was either 6 or 7, and I remember like going into a match like, oh, these guys are dumb. They literally just undocked in all of their teams and all their setups like in Jita, and we just saw every single one with their and like they just warped in at random ranges. One's in a completely clowny ship. And we could just take whatever, and we'd win, and it would be great. But from Alliance tournaments, I think 10 and onwards, probably, yeah, 10 and onwards is when it just felt so much harder for every single match. Like, you actually have to put your best match forward on every single round. And it makes it so frustrating on a team that predicates itself on having a lot of setups, because it means that you have to have so many more setups to be able to field. I know we've already fitted a lot of our teams, and we've got, I think, 16 or 17 teams that we can field on just based on name or something, and there's still a few more that we need to fit out. And it is so annoying to have to like put a really great team on the field against just every single competitor. That's why the lower bracket is so hard, because you face that many more people. But I don't know. That's why I want to get to the lower bracket, but like really, really late, because those extra games seem to really help. I don't know what it does. I guess it's like the Rocky effect or something, like where you really want to fight back from the bottom, or maybe we should call it the Drake effect now. Maybe the Rocky effect dates me too much.
Oh my god.
But I mean, for the last 3 years, the winners come from the lower bracket, though. You can't just like just assume that's nothing. It's got to be a real thing.
Like you pretend to lose and then you just come back and beat everyone up.
Well, the thing is, you can't pretend to lose, right?
You can't,
because that gets you in trouble. You have to actually lose.
Oh yeah,
and have
yeah,
ego
that's true.
lose.
Well, I mean,
I
you
remember
could, like, if you're going against like a
Dobbins
team who's like never been in there, you could be like, you know what, let's just throw our shittiest thing in there and try really hard. But if we lose, oh well, we'll just go win in the losers bracket. And then, so I mean, you don't put your best setup in there, but like you still try. But obviously, it'd probably be easily defeated if you pick like lower tier ships.
I've definitely heard stories of teams, and just for the record, I've never been involved with this, of teams maybe not bringing their best setup and then betting against themselves. Like, there's a little bit of that kind of drama in Alliance Tournament. There's definitely some questionable things that happen. You know, you occasionally see, like, weird things happen that, like, the commentators and theory crafters just can't explain. You're like, and often like occasionally a little bit of TQ drama leaks over to Alliance tournament as well. Like, certain people boundering in certain scenarios, maybe being paid off backhand, that kind of thing. There's a little bit of that goes on. Obviously, it's against the rules these days, but it's really hard to track.
So, Elise, do you think if PL wins this year, they're gonna win from the losers bracket?
Yeah, probably. I think we're gonna be sent to the lower bracket, kind of on the last Saturday, and then we'll just have to spend Sunday like fighting like Drake.
I remember Dobbins actually in AT11 was asking CCP for more time from the lower bracket run that they had to go through, and CCP actually told him, no, you have to stay on schedule. If you don't show up at this time, we'll forfeit it, and Exus will go forward.
Yeah. So that was really great to watch, because like I was there, like everyone was just so burned out because we had just played like 4 games in a row or something, and we were like, Gobbins, this is Gobbins. He tried to do a power play. He was like, yo, you got to give us like an extra hour, otherwise we're just gonna not show up, and you're gonna have like this awful tournament and stuff like that. He didn't say it like that, but that was like the vibe he was giving off. And CCP Veritas was the ref at the time. He was like, so you're saying you forfeit? Okay, you guys have forfeited. And he went, no, that's not what I meant. And, like, it was completely cold-blooded. Like, he definitely went with like some sort of power play, and it completely blew up in his face to the point where like almost disaster struck. But the pilots at the end, like, we had no idea what was going on. Like, it turns into like you start to like think and overthink yourself, and then you just stop thinking. Like that's what happens. Like you just go on what you've done before. That's where practicing really was really useful, especially in that Alliance tournament, because you just go off of like just a habit basically. Like you've done this hundreds of times, so you know what to do automatically without having to think.
Can be really stressful. Like the banning the having been a team captain a few times, the banning system can be incredibly stressful because the actual piloting and everything, that, like you said, that can be kind of like trained into, so you kind of just know what to do. But when that banning screen pops up, if you haven't got like a spreadsheet ready, if you haven't got like a clear strategy for what if the other guys ban this, what we're going to bring this, are we going to ban this, that kind of like, if you're not prepared, it can be incredibly stressful. I totally screwed it up in the beginning of Neo 1. And I was so stressed. I so wanted to win. I just completely forgot about banning dummies. And then they brought dummies, and my plan was not to practice dummies because I was always going to ban dummies, and I forgot to ban dummies, and it just went to shit. And that as a captain, it can be very stressful and exciting. And when you have to, I can totally understand Gobinson's point of view because they had to do, I can't remember the number of matches in like a very short time with practically zero preparation. So I can definitely sympathize with his point of view there when he was asking for more time.
When they did the banning thing, when they added banning as a mechanic for the Alliance tournament, we thought of all these ways to we do it right and stuff like that. And what ended up happening is we ended up just missing bans and overthinking it over and over and over again. I think we're the team that has missed the most bans because this little window pops up. All right, this isn't on me. All right, this is on CCP Veritas who made that window.
The UI
this little freaking window pops up, and there's this red number counting down, and there's like a drop down box with every single ship type you need, including Concord battleships, pirate battleships, everything, you name it. You have to find what you're looking for, and sometimes you just ban the wrong thing. You're like, screw it, and then there's no indication, at least in the beginning, if you were picking first or if you were picking second. Because they used to do it first pick, and then the second team gets the second and third pick, and then the first team gets the fourth pick again. And then they just made it alternating, whatever. But there was no indication what you were banning, what the other people had banned before. So our strategy for the longest time was, there's an Alliance tournament we only banned Celestis, Maulus. Those were the only ships we ever banned, was Celestis, Maulus, until the final weekend. And man, that was so freaking stressful. And that thing is the worst.
It is really the UI is not as polished as the rest of the game, shall I say? And functionally, it's really fiddly to use rather. Yeah.
with the tournament server, Thunderdome, I know they have the tournament tool. Does the banning phase actually go through that? So like team
Yep.
captains can practice and shit, or like it's not as
Yep.
stressful?
Yeah, it definitely
Yeah,
is.
you
It's
can.
included in there. Most teams skip it for the banning, skip it for matches. But we've definitely done a little bit of, we've definitely done a like practice banning session,
Like a fine.
using it, which is really cool. Actually, in fact, if any teams haven't tried that yet, get your because I think is it 3 or 4 people per team are allowed access to the tool. So if you can like get a couple of those guys together with your team captain, and actually just to spend an evening doing that, I'd definitely recommend that because it's fiddly as hell, and yeah, it's really good that the CSP have given us access to that to practice with it because there's a new captain never having used it before going into their first match. It can be really fiddly. You can accidentally ban things, the wrong thing, quite easily.
All right, well that's good to hear at least. Evlog is claiming they all know that he knows all ships by their ship ID.
Even if you couldn't even type that in. Like you would still have to go through it from the drop-down box. It's awful.
So you have to like know where it is in the drop down box. It's not very.
Well, it's alphabetical, but it's like
That's still bad though.
what I don't know. I didn't completely make the number of it. It's a couple hundred ships at least. We have to scroll through.
Well, that sounds painful. At least CCP allows you guys to practice it now, though. With the talk of being on time with what you guys were talking about with back-to-back matches, I've noticed the times this year are for like super early in the morning for Americans. So it's like around noon Eve time, which is like 6 or 7 a.m. for me. But if you're Pacific time, that's like 4 a.m. on the weekends. Do you guys think people are like super butthurt about that? I haven't really seen much about it.
It's not as bad as having matches on Thanksgiving weekend, but it's not ideal. I know why they're doing it though.
That is true. We don't have to do the Alliance tournament over Thanksgiving weekend, thankfully.
I think.
Yeah, and it's only for the first weekend where it starts super early, right? Or
Yeah, I think
I
the
believe
other
it's just the
the last
prelims.
2 weekends are actually pretty chilled out in terms of the number of matches and the amount of time. I think this is part of CCP's strategy to keep Alliance tournament going, is to make it a little bit cheaper for them, reducing it down to 2 weekends and then having like only 4 or 5 hours per session for them makes it much more reasonable in terms of like their staff man hours needed to run it, and obviously their production costs and stuff. By kind of like squeezing the number of people they need to run the first weekend matches from their end is a lot less than a full studio setup. So, if it means the Alliance tournament carries on because they're saving a bit of money and they can do it more regularly, I haven't got a problem with it.
yeah, a lot of things that like behind the scenes it's really hard to see is not only the number of people involved, but the time involved, and the fact that they're literally all volunteers. Like all the people that put on the broadcast for the Alliance tournament, they're literally spending their weekends without like any extra pay or anything. They just do it because they love it so much. Like there's literally passion dripping from every person there. It's really amazing to see firsthand, and it's one of those things that I wish got a little bit more publicity about it. Like just the amount of people who do it just out of the love for it. And in fact, I'm sure the Alliance tournament costs CCP a lot of money to put on, or at least a non-insignificant amount of money to put on. I know it doesn't make them money. We'll put it that way. The fact that they keep on doing it like makes people like me really, really happy.
It's definitely something they do for the community. It's not a sensible business decision. It's not
Yeah,
like
no.
you can't bait people into the game by advertising we do an Alliance tournament because that's not it's not a regular thing. It's not a regular part of the content. It is done, like you said, off the backs of staff volunteering to do it. So it relies on a lot of different things to happen, to come together to make it happen. So it's not something they can use as a marketing tool, really. So it is definitely something that's done for the community, and that means that it's a lot of work for the community guys, and I love them for doing it.
Do you think, Banks, you mentioned it's not like they use it to draw people in, but do you think CCP is going to use the Alliance tournament in some way to try and draw new players in, especially with the new Alpha State clones in November coming soon?
I don't know, possibly, but they've got to be careful they don't oversell it, because if they kind of like did use the Alliance tournament on their marketing, there's no way that an Alpha clone character is ever going to be competitive in the Alliance tournament because it's so limited on skills, right? I think maybe you could get an Assault Frigate out of it. Can you get 2 frigates out of us?
No.
No. Okay, so maybe a Griffin or a Maulus or something. But you know, the Alpha Clone characters are going to be very limited in terms of what they can do in the Alliance tournament. So I think it'd be a risky play by CCP to kind of go, hey, come on, come play this game that does this awesome community event every year. You can aspire to take part, but you're not going to be able to with this character. So I'm not sure they'll play that line too hard. I really think the Alliance tournament is definitely it's focused toward older players who don't log on to EVE all the time, and they like to have something to aspire to. It's kind of trying to draw a comparison from another kind of like game, but there isn't really anything the same. It's more of a community event rather than a part of the game that's like a solid mechanic. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I got what you're
Yeah,
saying.
I think they definitely had the intention of having it be a draw for the alphas and stuff by the original dates. Like that, the original dates where the finals were over Thanksgiving weekend kind of makes sense now, because like that would have synced up really well for the launch of the November expansion and stuff. Like that's at least the only thing that I can make sense of it now, because at the time I was like, okay, well this is a little bit ridiculous. You guys are great, but come on, Thanksgiving weekend, you know people aren't going to be able to play and stuff. And they finally I'm so glad they changed it to when they did.
They have scheduled it to clash with the World Finals of League of Legends tournaments. So maybe
no one's gonna watch that nerd stuff anyways.
Well, it does get millions and millions of viewers, right? And
millions and millions of nerds.
But at the
maybe.
same time? Is it at the same time or just date?
Now it is the same time. If the original dates, it would have been afterwards. So maybe they were thinking, avoiding that clash, looking at other esports. Big things that happen in esports calendar. You got like Dota and June, is it? And then there's a couple of things in August. So maybe they were waiting until November and it was a bit quieter on the esports stream to get more viewers. I don't know. That's just me making. I'm just presuming there, but.
Event or Neo 2 was actually during the middle of ESL 1 Katowice in 2014, so they've had issues with that before in the past.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there are only so many dates where you can get this stuff to work, right? You can't do it too close to Vegas. You can't do it too close to the holiday. It's such a can of worms. I couldn't do it earlier because they just don't need more championships. Blah blah blah.
I definitely think Alliance Tournament is a good thing to aspire to if you're a PvPer. I've always thought that like if you're an industrialist, you've got building titans as like an end goal thing to aspire to. Like you can build a lot of people start off building battleships, cruisers, modules. They dabble in T2 production, and then maybe they move up to capital production, and then obviously like the end game is like churning out titans for big nullsec entities making tons of money. People are interested in nullsec warfare. There's obviously an end game in kind of being the most influential alliance and having all the money, and lots of other aspects of the game there isn't. But in kind of small gang PvP, roaming PvP, there's not like really other than just having a glorious kill board and making sick YouTube videos and getting tons of hits. There's not like another really kind of like end goal. I definitely think the Alliance tournament kind of fills that. Definitely gives those sort of players that are really interested in small gang and solo PvP like an end goal kind of thing to drive for. Even if like they never kind of really get off for us and join a team and stuff, it's something that they can like dream about. So I definitely think it's got value there. Like it's something for like true PvPers, kind of elite PvPers to aspire to winning. So
I think it's a great thing to put on your bucket list if you like the PvP and EVE Online is to participate in the Alliance tournament, because you can make it worth your while even if you just win one match, right? Like financially it'll be worth your while because you get skins for every match that you win, and it's still worth doing, right? Like you get more money than it costs you to participate, assuming you win just one match. And it really is a completely unique experience in EVE, and it's a great way to I don't know. It's just a great way to experience the game. It's a new way to experience the game. It's a great form of combat. It's a really exhilarating rush. A whole new sets of challenges and stuff involved. It's really fantastic. I can't like oversell it enough. It is just so good.
We're just coming across as massive fanboys right now, aren't we?
I know. It's
To
really
CCB's
obnoxious.
credit, that was something that they really kind of lacked, was an incentive for some of the lower end teams to actually care. Because until, what was it? The longest time it was only first and second place got anything, right? In third place, when I got third with Exodus as a team captain, we got nothing, right? Now
Yeah, I
third and
think
fourth
that
place get
Alliance
tournament
Tournament
prize
12 is where it
ships.
changed. They changed the price structure, so
Yeah,
They
it was
changed
a
the price
really
in
good
AT
idea.
12. And then in addition in AT 12, they said, okay, not only are we going to change that structure, we're also going to give teams that win a single match 10 skins. So now you have a reason to, care, and there's something you can aspire to, even if it's not first or second place. You make top 16, you get the invite back automatically.
Yeah, I definitely think that was a really good decision on CCP's part. Like we were discussing earlier about the spread of pilots post Hydra Camel collapse. With the old price structure, I think what you would have seen is them kind of trying to reform into one kind of like another would like there would have probably been more motivation for someone to try and organize those guys, get them all together, and make someone else who could, a second place contender team or a first place contender team. Whereas with the price structure, a lot more teams now have got a chance of winning Alliance tournament ships because there's third, fourth place that can obviously get a slice of that pie. So it definitely encourages the good players to spread out amongst the various different teams, which is really cool.
Do you guys still see the stream online? Sorry to change it.
yeah,
Alright,
it's totally up. I'm still watching it. Sometimes, like if you're watching on Twitch, sometimes it goes down and pops up. Just have to refresh, which is not really useful to the one guy that crashed because he can't hear me. But still,
I typed it out too.
nice.
Sorry, I was getting my Windows back set up after talking to him. I want to say, the Rattlesnake Victory Edition skin, I want to say Blueprint, is that actually still going to be a skin? And is that from the 18?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it'll probably be a skin at some point.
So that hasn't
That's
happened.
the plan.
I was going to say, that hasn't happened with other Alliance Tournament skins, has it? Where they're still not yet a skin, but they're still...
the other ones
It's
were...
the only skin in the game, I believe, that hasn't been converted from the old format, and it's a little bit of a sore point for anyone who does actually own those skins. And it's kind of... There's a lot of people, I think, sitting on them, hoping that when they do get converted into skins, that you can inject into your character, and then, be able to use them anytime you fly a Scorpion, then they'll make some money. And CCP still haven't, and Logibro has stated specifically on the forums that it is their intention to get it converted over, but it's kind of like quite low down their list of priorities, I think, just because they've got so much shit to do. But it's definitely the intention that will be converted over to a skin that is, like all the modern ones.
Yeah,
because those came out before the skin system existed, right? So they would have to recode them and stuff. And I don't know, there's like a technical reason why they can't do it. I have no idea what that technical reason is. And even if someone explained it to me, I wouldn't understand it. But the goal is it'll be there eventually. So
those are from AT12 then, correct? Because skins are relatively new in the grand scheme of things. Okay.
They weren't. The way they came into existence, they weren't like skins as we know they are now. They were basically just another version of that hull with a slightly different color on the outside. So it was technically a separate ship, but its stats were the same as a normal ship, if that makes sense.
yeah, that was a really confusing year when they did like the different ship skins but didn't have the skin system.
Yeah.
Because you'd see a bunch of like different ship names on your overview and you'd be like, what is Sintaki Atron doing to me that the normal Atron isn't doing? Like, because I used to sort by ship type, right? And I remember in that Alliance tournament, there'd just be like different types, just different ship names in there. I get so confused trying to find the right target because I'm kind of slow.
I think at one point we actually considered bringing, in like a Neo 2, we actually brought like a skinned version of a Merlin or something to avoid like a ship point limit or something. Because you're normally barred to, like, saying having 2 of one ship, right? Said, oh, hey, CCP, if we skin, or just have the skin, can we bring it? And they're like, yeah, sure, whatever.
that sounds a little bit sketch. But yeah, I definitely remember seeing the Wakomi Merlins or whatever being flown a lot, not only because they were a cool color, but because they started with a W instead of an M, and Merlins are really, really popular back in that Alliance tournament, so maybe give yourself an extra like 5 seconds advantage when you're flying one of those ships.
Confuse the enemy type thing.
Yeah.
I was gonna say we are well over an hour. You guys absolutely love the Alliance tournament. I'm really glad I got you all on here. But is there anything else you want to add, or anything else you want to discuss?
Mostly, I just want people to watch that first weekend on the Eve NT because like Eve CCP will be streaming it without any commentators. We will be streaming it on this here channel next week with a bunch of commentators and an actual studio. It's going to be amazing. If you're not like familiar with the Alliance tournament itself, there'll be like, I don't want to say a newbie friendly stream, but there'll be like we'll explain a lot of what's going on very, very well, so it's like wouldn't be too brutal to newcomers or anything like that. But if you're a veteran or a new player, like you should definitely watch it on our stream for the first weekend. You'll really enjoy what you see, even if you just tune in for like an hour or two. I promise you'll have a good time.
That is
Fun
next
for
week.
players of all ages.
And if you can't watch it live because you're at work or family or because you're in the US and you don't want to get up at 5 in the morning, then it will be on our YouTube, and obviously you can rewatch it on Twitch later as well. So
Yeah, and for those in chat, the Alliance tournament is next weekend, Saturday at 1200 Eve time. I linked the schedule. It's pretty much the same, no matter which day it is or whatever. Or not which day, pretty much the same depending which tab you're on for October 1st. So definitely tune in here. We'll have a bunch of people live in a studio that you can see behind me in the picture, but as well as people like Elise and myself and moderator on comms giving commentary. And then, yeah, okay, Evlog is asking, yes, we will have a studio and everything. There'll be people like literally sitting in a studio commentating, kind of similar that they do for CCP. The moderator will be doing in a couple of weeks. But if you guys do you guys want to do shoutouts and then see if chat has any more questions?
Love to, yeah.
All right, moderator, go for it.
Yeah, shout out to Elise Randolph for not applying for commentators so that I could get picked.
Woot woot. You probably would have gotten picked even if I did apply. You guys are pretty good.
Claymore rubbed it in last night. He's like, "Oh, you're really good at commentating, Bay. You should apply for Alliance tournament."
Wow. Just no chill.
Why didn't you, Bay?
Oh.
Any other shoutouts?
I want to do a shout out to my boys in PL, especially in the PL Alliance tournament team. They've been putting in a lot of work. They've been not killing one another, which is fantastic. I don't think anyone's had an aneurysm or no one's rage quit this year. It's like a new record, although we still have a week to go, so maybe someone will. But big ups to them. I'm really excited to watch how my boys do.
And Bay, you?
Yeah,
Shout out to my team. Apparently they won 7 out of 7 practice matches tonight, which is giving me a little bit of hope. We're going to totally dunk Exodus in the first team, so I'm going to channel all my love towards those guys and wish them well. I'm going to be sat in a studio producing a TV show, so I don't think I'll get to fly, unfortunately. Which is probably a good thing because I found out this year that I'm a terrible backseat FC.
And moderator, you had more?
Yeah, Tuskers proved me wrong. They win the tournament.
Alright, and then I know Battle Dog's asking about flagships, so do you guys want to discuss those? I do know, the only thing I really know about flagships is that rules don't really apply to them, and NC Dot actually lost their flagship on Tranquility on accident.
Yeah, I saw that. I'm predicting a lot of Balgorn flagships. I don't know why people do this. Like, they look so good on paper, right? They're the ship that looks amazing on paper for control, but they're always so awful, and yet we always see like Balgorn after Balgorn after Balgorn. So we'll see, and with the rules change this year, where they're like Blood Raider ships are worth a little bit less. I'm sure we're gonna see a bunch of Balgorn flagships, and they're just gonna sit in the middle of the arena, get horribly controlled, nos some stuff for a while, web a thing, and then die. And that's how it's gonna play out, I think.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if you see a lot of Scorpion Navy issues as well, and what's the other shield one? Vargas possibly.
Rattlesnake is a really good tournament ship. Scorpion Navy is a really good tournament ship.
Yeah, so it was like those kind of shield batches. Possibly might see a couple of Typhoon Fleet issues. Or I don't think they make great flagships for myself, but people like they're really strong ships though in this year's meta. They were really strong in last year's meta, and I think that's going to continue this year. So.
Do you have
Yep. Interesting factoid about the Typhoon fleet issue. In Alliance Hornet 12, Quebec United Legion were the only alliance to make that their flagship. The only single one.
Was it only
Everyone
one?
else.
I
Yep.
felt like it should be one now because there's so many of them. Wow, I can't believe that.
Yep. Well, last year was 13, but they were like Quebec United Legion were like a year ahead of the pack. They
I
did
guess
Alliance Hornet 12. And
They
were the only
they
ones
weren't
that
actually
flagship.
good that year for anyone who's wondering why no one picked
Oh, that
it
was
then.
12. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Followed,
They
yeah.
were awful that year, the flagship.
Yeah,
but-
yeah. Well, they don't make the best flagships because they work best in pairs, right?
Yeah.
So if the best way to use a flagship is to dodge a ban, I think. So bringing a setup which the enemy bans out by banning Balgon or Barghest or Scorpion Issue, where you have like there's quite a lot of setups last year where they have one core battleship flanked by a couple of command ships and then a ton of bombers and tackle. There's like a pretty meta kind of thing. And if someone's banned Scorpion Issue and you really want to bring one, totally do that with a flagship. And that's one of the strongest things about a flagship, not just its fittings, is the fact that it can dodge bans and throw people off.
I was gonna say Battle Dog wanted to get more into, because he asked the question, but he wanted to get more into the mods you can use and what's allowed with the flagships. I do know it's officer mods, Dead Space mods, the purple mods that everyone talks about, the really blingy type mods that are allowed on these ships, and then like you said, they can dodge bans, so even when people ban them, you're allowed to bring it up, and as long as it lives, it's allowed in every match if you need it or want it.
Yeah, there's a limit to what you can do in the tank mods. You can't like have like more than one faction hardener or a faction repper, and you can't have certain types of faction hardeners. I think it's pretty weird, but mostly you can bling it out. You just can't like super ultra mega bling it out to have like a permanent tank on it or something.
Yeah.
So you can't have like a perma-tanked State Raven or something, which would be game-breakingly awesome if you could, because you could just like tank the entire field forever. But no, they don't let us have any fun.
But yeah.
I think the Balgon is a strong flagship because it has talking about sort of modules you're allowed on it. It also has a web range bonus, and so when you put officer mods on it, that stacks beautifully. I can't remember the exact number, but like if you overload webs with skirmish links with officer fit Balgon webs, you can set a Balgon at 0 of the arena. You can warp it to
You
0
hit like
arena.
71 kilometers with your web.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
you
ridiculous.
you can double web and any logistics straight off the bat, which is a really strong play. If you've got like a heavy DPS setup that you can pile onto that logistics straight away and take away the enemy's logistics in 30 seconds to a minute, then that's quite a strong strategy. I've seen that a number of times. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, but that's why people love the Barghest, right? Because Balgorn, because it synergizes so well with the faction mods and the faction Gnosses and officer Gnosses and stuff, which you have no limitation on for that ship is also an incredible synergy. And you get to armor tank it, so you can use the mid slots for all utility and Toby webs and stuff like that. But I don't know. I still think it looks great on paper, but garbage in practice. We'll see how other teams view it. On that.
Yeah, I don't know actually. I haven't followed when they're going to be posted actually. I know
Yeah,
that
usually they're posted
they
by
were
now.
submitted last Thursday, were they? Or the deadline was
think
last
so.
Thursday, I think.
Yeah.
So I would expect them to announce the flagships. Hopefully, like today, tomorrow, so teams have got a little bit of time to, maybe consider what their opponent might or might not be able to bring. So.
Yeah, that is definitely one of those things. Well, hopefully we'll see it starting this week or Monday or Tuesday or something like that.
I think they are now finally confirmed submitted, so they just have to actually release it. I think that's what Battle Dog was saying. Yeah, they've been submitted. But I guess kind of unrelated, but because we had the MR Championship and we have the new silver, or not new, but the silver and gold magnates now distributed, do you guys think we will see any of those in the Alliance tournament?
I certainly hope so.
Knowing kind of what little I do about the meta, no, I don't see them being particularly relevant. I could be wrong. Maybe silver. I don't think it's worth it using the gold magnate because those are just probably more than third place or fourth place rather finish alone.
Yeah, I'm not sure about those ships either. I think you'd be able to see a lot of the silver ones if you could use more than one tournament ship. But with that restriction, the frigate's kind of not worth it too much to field over. Like if you could put a fiend or a single silver magnate, I mean, you're probably going to choose a fiend or an Atano every single time.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if we'll see many of those types of ships. They're super cool though, and just for like bling factor, I hope some teams ring them just because that's fun.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's why that's why teams will bring them because you are restricted to one ship per match now, and it's not a ship that well for teams that there are some in hands of players which are not in great big teams. So if they're ever going to get a chance to use those silver magnates, Alliance tournament, if you're going to go out and whelp the ship, because you want to fly it, because you want this cool ship, and you want to actually see it in space, dying gloriously in an Alliance tournament ship is a cool thing to do, I think, and I think we'll probably see a couple used in that way.
Yeah, I think they're actually like way worse than Malices though. Like, I think the Malice is still like the Malice and the Campion are like I think the number one and number two like tournament frigates to use.
Definitely.
Just because they're like ridiculous, right? It's like Newt's almost like a tiny. Well, it is a tiny curse, but it feels like it's more than just a tiny curse because the cycle time on small Newts are so high. So like those ships are so ridiculously broken. I love them.
There's still a few left as well. It'd be interesting to see how many. Who's like I've completely lost track of like which pilots are taking them to which teams. It'd be interesting to see how spread out like with the spread of the Hydra pilots. It'd be interesting to see how many which teams have got which ships and whether or not having a Tana or having a Fiend is going to be make or break now as to whether or not you win. They're obviously still really strong. I think it's always been a thing, but they've been obviously pulled into 2-3 teams, whereas now they're a lot more spread out. And I think like making a decision if you've got like a fiend or one fiend or maybe two fiends, like making a decision when you play that card is going to be interesting. It's going to be quite hard thing for captains to decide when to play it. So.
And Alliance tournament ships can still be banned correct, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So if you wanted to ban like all shield logi, you could do that, but you'd waste all 3 bans on literally all the 3 shield logi.
Well, you get 2 bans, right? So it's one of the strengths
Oh.
of the Atana is that if someone bans Simi Bazi against you, and you really want to bring shield stuff up against the guys that you're flying against because either you've got intel on them or you just feel happier flying shield than armor, then the Atana is really useful for that because you can still bring a shield logi setup.
I thought it was 3 bans. Okay, never mind. But yeah, that makes sense why the Intana would be really powerful for
And it's
the team.
why the prizes this year. I forgot the name of it. Does anyone remember the name of it? It's like it's basically
Cadius, maybe? I can't remember.
Cadence.
basically an armor version of an Atana, but even more powerful, I think.
Yeah, the Guardian.
It's got
So-
like Thassa's on it too, right? Like it's even
got-
just
yeah.
completely wonky.
It is going to be an absolutely insane Alliance tournament ship. Like these things are going to be so valuable for players who want to, for teams who want to progress and try and build a dynasty in Alliance tournament. Getting hold of those ships is so key. I think they're going to sell for stupid amounts of money.
Alright. So far, it doesn't look like anyone actually had questions besides Battle Dog, but if you guys are done with your shoutouts, I can close that unless you guys want to keep talking more.
I'm good.
I mean, I'll talk for days, but I mean, I think everyone would stop listening. I go to sleep eventually.
I have an entire week and a half to talk, so
Good luck, moderator. Are you gonna be on like any podcasts or anything prepping for the AT?
I haven't booked anything as of yet. I think so far I'm just set for doing commentary with ENT for the preliminary weekend.
Awesome. I am looking forward to that. Well, thank you all for being on my show. I will close out the show now, do the little outro. Thank you all for sticking around. And I'm so sorry about that bot. He keeps banning you all. But no, Zarbox will not swear live on AT stream, no more than anyone else will, because I know how CCP rules. So with that, I will close it, and don't worry, I will not forget my outro this time, so you all can laugh a bunch. So have a good day.